my mother, who is still with us, who's an actress, director, teacher, she found the short story. She's an avid reader. She kind of keeps her mind healthy by reading a lot, and she often adapts literature for the stage in theater, and that became a love of mine as well. And she found this short story in the New Yorker. She had stacks of New Yorkers in her apartment, and she sent it to my brother, Jeremy, and he fell in love with the story. She said, I think this might be a role for you. So, and he fell in love with the story as well and started optioning it from Rebecca Miller, who is in charge of Arthur Miller's estate. Rebecca is his daughter. She's married to Daniel Day-Lewis, one of our greatest actors. And Jeremy loves to tell the story of how he was sort of coaching her while they were negotiating this idea of optioning the rights, which means, you pay a certain amount every year so that no one else gets the rights to this story. And at any rate, my mom had talked about it to me, Jeremy, we all talked about it, and Josh and I had just worked on my last film, Welcome to Me, and had a great collaboration. Josh was the editor on that film and is also a writer. So I said, do you want to adapt this story? It's a fantastic story, and for me, in order to even dream of making a movie, I have to have that almost, I have to be all in. I have to feel like this. So there's something about this premise that felt like it wanted to be a movie. So that was maybe how many years ago?
I mean, you first walked into the cutting room, I think, 10 years ago and said, I just read this story.
That's crazy. Okay. So yeah, we started writing it maybe a few years after that.
Yeah.
So in addition to the film speaking to you and asking to be made into a movie, there's also family tradition about adapting works of literature to the stage. Speaking of adapting, what can a writer do transposing a work that is written for the page onto the screen? What could Arthur Miller do on the page that you couldn't do on the film? What could you do on the film that Arthur Miller couldn't do on the page?
That's a great question. Yeah, I mean, when Shira and I started talking about it, about the movie, I mean, it lit my imagination on fire, ran out, I got a book that had the short story in it, and it's an amazing short story. It's about 12 pages long. It's really tight, but there's so many nuggets in there that, like, we ran with threads that weren't included in the story, because, again, it's pretty short. Like the idea of somebody having a stage name. It's kind of an aside comment that's made about some random person, and then we started going like, that's where the idea of Harold Markowitz being his real name kind of came from. So some of these ideas were seeds germinated in there. But the biggest difference was in the story, Harold is telling this at the end of it all to a journalist. And it's more or less, he's kind of the same guy. And for a movie, we knew, he needed to go on a bigger journey than that. We wanted to go on that journey with him. So that's where the ending, I think, was the biggest shift. In addition to, we had to add in a lot of details about other characters. The character Paul definitely wasn't, fleshed out that way in the story.
And the love story wasn't fleshed out.
For sure. Yeah, we had to kind of follow the clues that Arthur Miller gave us and go down those roads.
But a discovery I made only in the last few weeks is that Harold is really kind of a very archetypical Arthur Miller character. He's you think of Willy Loman in Death of the Salesman, for instance. He's an American man who is doing his work. Even though his work is creative, he's trying to find fulfillment, spiritual fulfillment, make a living as an American man, and the search is fraught.
One other little fun fact of like what's different in there that I was thinking about today was the speech that Carol has when she's trying to plead with Harold to leave with her and Paul. It's actually the speech that the journalist who is hearing the story from Harold in the short story. It's his last speech of the short story, and that kind of got translated into Carol's character.
In addition to the challenges that are inherent in adapting a work from the page to the stage or the screen, you also had to write here a period piece. And you're setting this period piece in a time span which is extraordinarily familiar to everyone. We know Berlin in 36, 37. You chose a very effective device, which is Polly's home movies. How did you come up with that?
Like anything, like many things in film, it kind of developed in layers because I knew, trying to keep it succinct, I knew I wanted to use period, I knew I wanted to use 8mm footage. I knew I wanted to use found footage of the period or archival footage, and for many reasons. At first, I knew that that it's an independent film. We would have a small budget, and it was a way of getting exteriors that we couldn't necessarily simulate if we didn't have, millions and millions of dollars. But it really evolved then as a creative idea, and creatively, I love the look and feel of 8mm footage, and yeah, that was probably the biggest research I did on the film in as far as the look and feel of the film, that I knew I wanted to have that kind of very period home movie feel, but at the same time, I wanted it all to feel immediate and contemporary.
We in the audience, your audience today, we see this film in hindsight. We know what happens after 1936, 37. We know the Anschluss. We know the invasion of Poland. We know the death camps. These people don't. Can we forgive these characters for their willful ignorance?
That's a great question. Amazing question. Well, I was thinking about this a lot today, actually. For me, it is about these characters. I think it's easy to watch a movie like this set in this time period and go, oh, Nazis, authoritarianism, and focus on that. But for me, it's more about how authoritarianism, what it makes us do, what it leads us to. And so for me, it is a thing of fear. Fear, it creates hate. Fear leads to, assimilation, as we see Harold's always trying to just be a normal American and fit in. I do think, there's some things that are unforgivable in there, but, are difficult to reckon with. But I think the truth of the Arthur Miller story that I really connected with is that Fugler even isn't a monster. He's a guy that does monstrous things, and I think we see how even Harold is capable of some of the same things. So for me, it's about reckoning with those things inside of kind of all of us.
I'd like to open this up now to the audience, and yes, please.
Why did your brother train dancer before the movie started?
Would you repeat that again, please?
Was Jeremy a trained dancer before the movie started? He was not. He was not. He claims that he started tap dancing when he started taking tap dance lessons when he started optioning the movie. And he loves to tell it that the more people said no to us, because it's very hard to get a film finance. The more no's we got, the better he got at tap. But also, he was a drummer, so he had a great innate sense of rhythm. And he always seemed like he was always a very kinesthetic person, even as a little kid. And I thought of him as kind of a frustrated dancer, but no formal dance training. It was hard.
And he was trained by Jared Grimes, the dancer at the very end of the movie on the street. Jared Grimes was our choreographer. He's a Tony-nominated Broadway performer, was a funny girl, and so he learned from the best.
Yeah, Jared is also an expert in this period of tap, because more contemporary tap is just stylistically really different. So we got lucky to work with Jared. He was an amazing choreographer, and he is an expert in that period.
Yes, please, and please speak up.
When Harold kissed the mezuzah at the end of the show, were we
led to believe this was a new behavior for him, or was this something he had grown up with?
Let me just repeat that to make sure everyone heard. When Harold kisses the mezuzah at the end of the show outside the shop, are we to believe that this is a new incarnation, a new chapter in his life?
What do you think? Honestly, no, I feel like that's a great question to lead with. Those kinds of questions, I like when those questions resonate with an audience. It's actually, I think it's part of the meaning of the journey that Harold goes through. I don't think I think yes. I mean, of course I would say yes. I think it reflects a little bit on, or a lot on the evolution of Harold coming to terms with who he is as a person, a moral person, and a Jew. I mean, these are heavy questions that he's been, that I feel like lately, more and more with the event, we started this film, and some of the major tragic events that have happened in the last year, 2 years, have not happened. And so it's been really painful and interesting as well to see the movie kind of resonate against the world events and make us think. It makes me think a little differently about what's going on in the movie. For me, there's so many films and pieces of art, entertainment made about this era, and I've been feeling lately like it's partly because there's such clear moral choices in that era. And for me, a story, a movie has to be a metaphor. That this journey these characters go on, the relationships, everything is metaphor. So even when you're talking about Jews and Nazis, it becomes metaphor. That ideally, otherwise it would only be Jews who relate to this movie. That's not why we make things.
Yes, please.
Harold definitely came to his Judaism late and caused by his experience because he wasn't circumcised. So he couldn't have been a very religious Jew in the beginning.
The gentleman mentions he thinks that Harold came to his religion late in life because he wasn't circumcised, but I think he misread the film. Do you notice what the doctor says when he drops his shorts? He says the American fashion butchers, and that's what he's referring to.
Not to go into too much of the history of circumcision in the United States, but that is around the time that it became more of just common practice. So there's that.
It's a tricky moment though, and it's you're not wrong for misreading it. I think there are little bits of dialogue that are sometimes hard to hear, and depending on the theater, but Harold is circumcised, and the doctor, it's one of the most ambiguous moments in the movie, and it's one of my favorite moments, that the doctor, that particular event, that the doctor sees that he's circumcised, he says, the American fashion. And he glosses over it, and he congratulates him as an upstanding Aryan, an upstanding man of Aryan race. And that's the moment, strangely, the moment that he sort of says, anoints Harold as being worthy and pass the exam. That's the moment that Harold decides he can't do this anymore. And tonight that was really moving to me. It wasn't the moment where he feared for his life. It wasn't the moment where he felt like I can't deal with the Nazis because of what they said. He realized at that moment that he might be absolved, but others would not be. He became part of a collective whole, I feel, at that moment.
Shira did such an incredible job directing that scene. It is so tense, and we're so inside of it. And something I always remember when I see that scene is it's not until the end, when the doctor congratulates him, that you remember, oh yeah, this is all made up. Like, we get caught up in the race science, but we know it's not real. And that's kind of the trick of the movie there.
Gentleman in the middle?
So, Jeremy's performance was incredible. What did he say to you about it when you saw the movie?
Jeremy's performance was incredible. What did he say to you when he saw the movie?
Well, it's, I'm trying to remember what he saw. I think that we had a first screening. He's also a producer, so he was very involved in the process. But there was that first screening where he hadn't seen it. And he saw it, and he was, I just remember, do you remember? I remember he was very happy with it. I think he actually cried. He is a crier, though.
The ending really got it.
The ending really got it.
Because that Shira, again, to Shira's credit, really came together at the ending. On the day, she was really hammering, going like, I don't think we've put on the page what needs to be on the screen, and she really kept trying to explore how to really get the ending to land, and it came together with Shira directing Jared's performance, the look on his face, the colored entrance sign was a choice by the editor, actually, and so it really all came together.
Thanks, Josh. No, yeah, okay.
There's a question here.
So I'm sure that you didn't schedule this premiere to be the day after the election,
Thank you
but it was.
for bringing it.
And of course, it's terrifyingly relevant. And as a viewer, what I kept thinking throughout the movie was, when is Harold going to hit his breaking point, right? Oh, it must be now. No, but it's not now. Oh, now it's going to happen. And
Yeah.
I love the choice that you described, but I'm just wondering if you can comment on the relevance and what we can take from this about when people hit that point where it's too much and they have to stop.
The questioner asks, all through the film, he kept asking himself, when is Harold going to hit his breaking point? And he asked if Shira could comment about that, and what kind of lesson can we draw about reaching a breaking point and saying no, enough?
Wow. I feel like we've all reached so many breaking points in the last 10 years or so. Yeah, that's the suspense of the story. Yeah, I'm so emotional about the election and what that means. I feel like we've all missed the moment of our breaking point. Yeah, I feel like we've missed the moment, and now we're in that phase of when will we wake up and start to, I don't know, maybe it's taken to the streets at this point to pressure our leaders to do the right thing. It feels like there's a lot of brokenness in our system that needs to be fixed, and I guess we all have to put our hearts and our heads together to figure out how we move forward.
Question here?
About Boomer, I just had some questions about his character. Was he suspicious that Jeremy was a Jew? You know, he made that statement in the car before the examination. He sort of gave him an out, like he didn't have to have the examination, and he canceled the show. And then after the examination, he told him that he should stay in the hotel until the performance. Did he suspect that he was Jewish, do you think?
The questioner asks, did the character of Damien Fogler, the agent, the devil's agent, suspect perhaps that Harold May was a Jew, and is that why he gave him the possibility of an out in the car?
I love different interpretations of that exact question, because that's come up before, and my feeling is that you know what, I have different feelings about that on different days. I talked to the actor, you know, he had certain feelings about the way that Flugler feels about Harold. If you were to make me guess, I would say he probably had thoughts and feelings that he had repressed about it. He tried to sweep it under the rug, but I love that we can ask those, we can leave, you can all leave as an audience asking those same questions. Josh, do you have that?
Yeah, I'm with you. I love leaving it up to up to the audience and different viewings every time. I would say if he did suspect anything, I think part of the fun of the movie is that every character is putting on a performance in some way. They're all faking something, and if he had his suspicions, I think that's part of his performance is trying to step that down.
All right. This has been enlightening and entertaining and wonderful. Shira, thank you. Josh, thank you. Thank all of you. We hope to see you again tomorrow night for Avenue of Desire right here.